down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Hi, and welcome back to the podcast that floats down here. Starting January 2022, we're finally doing it. We did a long book to start, then we took 2 years and book a month, book a month, book a month. Now we're taking our time. We are going with, I'm prepared to say, one of Melissa's favorites. It's well known. It's a lot of Stephen King readers' favorites. It is The Stand, originally published in 1978, but also re-released with the director's, writer's, commentary cut, whatever, director's cut version in 1990. That's the version we're reading, the definitive edition. It is in total 1,141 pages, or a total of 16, that's not right, 16 hours and 12 minutes. It's like 48 hours.
That may have been with the time the speed bumped up and I didn't double check it. That's on me.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's on me.
That's okay. I think it's like
earlier.
47. Yeah, that's all right. I think it's like 47 and a half hours.
I can get the answer very, very quickly here. Sorry.
Yep.
I failed the team.
Well, while he's doing that, the dedication for this
47 hours, 47 minutes.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's always stuck up on my truck little dash, so that's why it stuck out to me.
Not very long at all.
Yeah,
it's not 1,000 pages.
But the dedication was for Tabby, this dark chest of wonders. You've already heard from one of our panel members, Luke. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to start a new book at, I'm going to say what I feel like might be a medium pace for what we're used to. We've gone hyper slow. We've gone really fast, a book a month. It's a lot to cover. I feel like hopefully we've struck a good balance on breaking this big book up and actually be able to unpack it. So I'm excited to start this book and talk about it.
Agreed. All right. And also joining us is Melissa live from quarantine, as her video says.
Hi, friends. I got the Rona.
Yeah. I was going to ask Melissa, do you want a beer? One from Mexico? No, maybe a light.
Oh, that's funny.
Did you do that like as part of just getting in character for this book? Was this on purpose? Was this character research?
Look, I'm not saying that I went method. I'm just saying that it worked out. I will say, Luke and Benji messaged me this weekend. They were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, No, not good. Not good, right? This is my room. I'm obviously not in my recording studio. I have not walked out my bedroom door since Friday. Like, food has been delivered to the door. No one comes in. Nobody is talking to me. And it was like, but we're totally doing the book Monday night. They're like, "Are you going to be okay?" I'm like, it's The Stand. It is the perfect book to be quarantined for, especially the beginning. Are you kidding me? Yes. Also, I'm very bored.
So this is like the perfect thing for you to get into. So
yes, and then I'm going to sleep for 12 hours because this is going to wear me out. But it's fine.
I'm glad you made it. Cheers. Hopefully you feel better soon.
Got all my tea. It doesn't have any whiskey in it. Oh, there's some downstairs. I'm not allowed there.
Whiskey might help. It might kill off some of the germs. All right. Anyway, so we are, as I said, reading The Stand. We do not have a back cover synopsis because Melissa's back cover doesn't have a synopsis on it, but it's the motherfucking Stand. Most people have either read the book or at least seen the miniseries from 1994 or the new one in 2020. And I will be, for our listeners, going through when we mention a main character, kind of mentioning what actor played them in the miniseries as well, just to help people along there too. I have both cast lists pulled up to go through that. So with that said,
Hey, if you're new here, welcome. We kindly ask that you subscribe. That'd be awesome. We appreciate it. We've had our numbers go up lately, which has been cool. So thank you guys for doing that very much. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's always great to see you. I see AK in the chat. She said she's not feeling too well either. So hopefully this book about sickness can help you guys feel better. I don't know if that's really what the doctor ordered, but we'll see.
Nobody survives.
Please hit that thumbs up button and share this with a friend who also loves Stephen King's books or movies or shows or whatever. So I'm excited to get into this one. Let's do it.
So today we started with the first sixth of the book, basically the preface and book one from page 1 to the end of chapter 25, basically page 218, or 8.5 hours on the audiobook is the cutoff point. So with that, we did start off with editor's preface and everything like that to the new standing. Did anybody want to talk about that? What he did with?
I love that he like sits there and goes, "This is in 2 parts. The first part is before you buy it. If you're looking for a new story, don't buy it. Like just I hope you saved your receipt." But my favorite part of that is at the end of that first preface, where the very last sentence, 2 sentences, he says 3 sentences. "If this expansion is something you want, I invite you to come along with me just a little further. I have lots to tell you, and I think we can talk better around the corner, in the dark." I love Stephen King.
I
'Cause
always
it's
love
just-
getting his take. You know, I know he talks about this in some of his other prefaces too, or author's notes at the ends of how like a lot of people don't care about like the writing process, and he gives like the same answers because it really is kind of what it is. And I mean, he wrote this in 1990, this author's note, right? This is when it was re-released because he talks about how it's not the exact same thing as what you would have seen before. I was the one that did the surgery on it to cut it down for the original release. Not every single thing came back, but a lot of things were added back, and it wasn't changing the things. It was more of just adding more things that these characters were actually doing from the original cut that just didn't make it. So I don't know. I love seeing the way his brain works. Any good creator in their field, I just love understanding where they're coming from. And he even calls himself out like, maybe this is self-aggrandizing a little bit, but you know what? Kind of screw it. People have been asking for it, so I'm going to do it. Hopefully it's well received, because I'm curious to see what people will really think. This is what you've been asking for. Like I appreciated him just like laying that on the line to start.
I also like it in his notes. He's like, "This isn't my favorite book. My readers, however, a lot of them, it's their favorite. Like a majority of them. I don't get it, but they come up to me and ask me about it, and it's like, okay." And I think I heard that the very first time I listened to this book, and that's kind of set me on my path. Like I'm like, and I don't dislike this book. Let me say this first and foremost, but it set me on this isn't, in his opinion, his best work, and so I'm not going to think of it as highly. So I think that might have skewed me on it, but it's still enjoyable. Kind of goes in my note though. I'll cut it here, but the big difference, there's differences between the 1978 and 1990. Like you can tell the stuff he threw in to make it more update. Like he mentions Madonna, he mentions rap music, he mentions all this kind of stuff, but then he has like weird random things that you wouldn't find in the late 80s, early 90s. It was stuff from the early to mid 70s that like they're and I can't say specifically what it is, but like there's some stuff where it's just like that would not have been the case in 1990, like very minor, like even like a small town police sheriff's thing, maybe it would have been, but like it just felt very mid 70s, early 70s compared to, that time frame. So like there was just always like a couple of stark differences that kind of took me out of it from time to time. Not bad. It's just something I've noticed, in this first portion.
I could agree with that. I wouldn't say that I specifically thought of it that way, but it could almost be, I don't want to call it lazy misses. Like, I don't want to call it that, but it could be skewed that way. Of usually when he's writing for that one time period, all of his pop culture references are so tight. Like, it's almost too tight, on all of the specific era things, that there were things that were stretched out in that timeline on those references that seemed a little far-fetched or out of place that I can't, again, I didn't like write them down specifically, but there were a handful that was like, man, I was thinking of it as it was just still 1978 because that's when I know it originally came out, but there's definitely things that were updated that caught my attention.
Yeah, like to me, because I read it as 1990. Oh, sorry, Melissa. Go ahead. Oh, I read it as 1990 because that's when it was. But then, like, "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man?" That song, that's very much almost a 60s style, pop hit. You'd never hear that on the pop charts in 1989, 1990 kind of thing.
False.
Not from a single artist. Backstreet or Boys or New Kids on the Block, sure.
Fair.
Not from a single artist. That's
read my mind. Continue.
Yep. So that's all I was saying. But little things like that, where it's like, okay, this is from the 70s. This is.
I think part of the problem, typically when he writes present day, unless he is intentionally past tensing it, like he did for Joyland, right? Or with It, where he had distinct time periods, and so it was very focused. But this had to be surgically reworked. And I think the things that you're finding that feel odd are the things that are structurally necessary for the plot and can't be tweaked with an update.
Right. Or it would take a lot more effort to redo a lot of things that would by nature change inherently the story. I get that.
Oh yeah. And
I think that's the disconnect. So I'd be really curious for him to do it and update it another 30 years to now with all the technology that.
Yeah.
Let's go. I have a project for you. All right. We're ready to start?
Right. Yep, let's go. So we're gonna jump into the preface. Luke, you were so kind. I'll let you start on.
So what I did, I'm gonna give this guy a plug because he did a lot of work that we are going to utilize. So John Birmingham, you can find him at medium.com/@John Birmingham. He went through and did a whole The Stand chapter by chapter breakdown. So we are going to kindly use his effort and give him props because it's pretty well done. It starts with the intro to every chapter, as well as like a 2-sentence description of what it is. So the preface: Charles Campion gets out of the lab in time to escape with his wife Sally and baby Levon. That's really all that happens. He escapes from the lab and gets out of Dodge, goes AWOL from his military post.
Yeah, so this is a good hook chapter. Like, if this is, you don't read any preface, don't know anything about the Stand, but you read this, it's like, okay, what? Okay, now I'm intrigued. What the hell's going on? And I my first note of the whole thing that I had actually written out, can't really blame Campion. Alarms are going off. Clocks went red. He looks up and he knows that means. Red means he's dead. Clocks are red. He's supposed to be locked in. Door's not locked. I'm gone. And just AWOL takes off, I mean, yeah, can you blame him for everything, for pretty much causing all of this, like, that is to come? Sure. But can you blame his mentality? Not at all,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the self-preservation nature, I mean, I feel like most people would end up doing that. It takes a lot to put yourself in that, where you're not even going to go home and tell your wife when you're the only one that could do it. And later on, we found out he gets pretty lucky in the fact that he's even able to get out. Like, he just happens to choose the right way when he's escaped. We'll come back to that later, but it's still unlikely that he even would have gotten out the way he did.
Yeah. And as I said, in the miniseries, 94 was Ray McKinnon, 2020 was Curtis Cook Jr. Played that character. And yeah, it's I don't know. I forget where I was going to go with what you said, but
I don't know. I don't think there's much to it. Like, he ran. Of course he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Takes his wife and daughter, gets in the car, and that leads us into chapter 1. So, Ben, do you want to read this one off for us?
Sure. Hapscomb's Texaco, Saturday on number 93, just north of Barnett. Stu Redman and friends are sitting at the local store bitching about the world. A car crashes into the pumps. The occupants are sick, dead, or dying. An ambulance takes them away. Happens to be Campion and family in that one. Stu Redman in the movies is Gary Sinise, and I should know this one, James Marsden from both of them, just to help get some visual aids for you. But yeah, I mean, it's a good introduction to Stu, and because he's the only one who notices the car coming. He's like, "Hey, Hapscomb, you might want to try off the pumps," and everyone's just bullshitting, talking, talking about plans
printing
and
more money just because that's what's going to get everyone out of debt. Just print more money. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's a good basic introduction to the small town, and it still doesn't it starts to tell you the occurrences with the Campion family. You see the dead wife and daughter, both with swollen glands and kind of look like they've been,
purple and
yeah.
it's
So-
been pretty gross. I like. First of all, can we talk about the fact that we've got another Hapscomb?
It's close, right?
Yeah.
Every time it
Like,
sounded
not
close.
quite-
It's not
I
quite
know.
Hapscomb, but I've heard
Not
as Stu was
quite
like,
Ben.
really? We're reusing names again? But technically, this was a character before Ben Hanscom.
This was
That's what I'm
I
saying.
know.
Like, I feel like it's happened less in the newer books than it did in
Yes.
before it. I feel like he just used all of the names in it at some point and then went to different names. I'm sure there are ones that crossed over, but
I feel like, what did we read right before the Institute? What was, because I don't have my bookshelf behind me.
sorry,
you have it there, Benj.
I do
I
not.
can
Give
get
me-
it. Give me a
I-
second.
Hold on, I'm almost there. The Outsider. The
Outsider.
Outsider, I feel like had a little bit more. Well, no, because that was still
that was part of the not
That
the
was
trilogy,
Bill
but that was
Hodges.
still
That was the fourth.
yeah,
Yeah,
sort
The
of.
fourth book in the
maybe
trilogy.
not.
Yeah.
That
Which I
makes
found
sense.
out there's another book with that character that we saw in The Outsider that came out.
Sorry.
Holly?
With Holly. If It Bleeds is a whole Holly book that I will be taking on
Cool.
soon here.
Nice.
Just want to give that shout out. I just found that out. And I'm like, oh, okay then.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I mean, pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward chapter of we meet Stu and his friends. That basically everybody's down on luck. Town's kind of dying with recession. Again, that's more of a 1970s style thing because there was more of a recession in the 70s than there was in the 80s. But they're talking about everything getting shut down. So it's over Japan or Asia, China, them losing their jobs, and it's just a good introduction to at least one of those characters that becomes someone we follow for a while.
Yeah, and even though some of these guys, this is definitely a poor little town. Businesses have moved out of town. A lot of the guys are out of work, and they're not the brightest bulbs. Like, they're nice guys. Some of them are nicer than others. Some of them kind of, we find out, more just small town redneck douches. But they still, one of them's like, what if this is like cholera? What if it's something that spreads? And they're like, that's pretty unlikely. It's more like food poisoning, right? Because they just drove from California, because the California plates. I mean, it turns out they should have listened to that guy. Like, hey, don't just go run up and touch the bodies. Like, you want to help, I get it, but yeah, maybe questionable,
Oh, this book is so timely.
right?
Right? No comment. All right, we're gonna Melissa. Any further thoughts on Arnett?
I don't. I feel like they're just a bunch of good old boys who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we will continue to see that they continue to be in the wrong place. But
I'd almost
and
say
we're
they
not
were
quite there yet.
they were in the right place at the wrong time, because in any other circumstances they would want to go help that family because of what just happened. They're there, and that's why they're the good boys. They want to go help those people. It just wrong timing, for the wrong family to help.
I mean, Stu was pretty awesome getting those pumps turned off in time
that
to
was-
not have the explosion. But really,
Yeah.
besides that, yeah.
For
Nope,
sure.
that's all I got.
All right, chapter 2. There was a long rock pier running out into the Atlantic Ocean from Ogonquit, Maine, Town Beach. So this is Frannie Goldsmith. She is pregnant. Her boyfriend is hopeless. She falls over and bites her tongue. Again, I didn't write these summaries, so if you have take...
No,
And
actually,
I'm just glad
that's pretty
I
accurate.
didn't have to. Yeah,
See,
Oh,
I'm just
right.
glad I didn't have to write these.
I hadn't read all of these because I got into the habit when I was pacing them because I haven't read past this part. I'm the only one who hasn't read past this part, but I had to like not focus on what they said because so I do take a little bit of umbrage with that because I don't think he's that hopeless. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I don't really appreciate the way she treated him in this scene.
Same.
I don't think it was very good of her to treat him the way she did, personally.
Same. And actors playing Frannie is Molly Ringwald in 94 and Odessa Young in 2020. Yeah, that goes to like my second note was not a big fan of her because she's had a couple weeks of finding out she's pregnant, processing it, getting it ready, and then she breaks the news to Jimmy and she's like, so what do you think?
Jesse.
Jess.
Sorry. Jess. Yeah. So here's our options. What do you think? And it's like, bam, 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 bam. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, and then she's like, well, you don't have to answer now. Come back to me. And like, just very snarky and snotty. And I get it. She's, growing and deciding she doesn't want to be with him and realizing that and everything.
She's
but
also a hormonal ball of pregnant. Give her a break, boys.
Fair, but he just literally got this information dumped on him.
He gets so blindsided, and she is pretty disrespectful to him, I think, because there's a way, trust me, there's a way this can go that isn't so bad. And if you give the person a chance, just saying, a little familiar, I'm kind of on Jesse's side of like, whoa, like I'm trying to do the right thing here, and you're just like shitting on me any chance you get, like from Jesse's perspective, like she doesn't even give him a chance at all to like want to do the right thing. And she's like, oh, it doesn't matter because it's not going to be up to you no matter what at all. And I don't know. It was just very much her mind was made up, even though she doesn't tell herself that it is. And there's no option for him at all. And I just felt like it was a bit, I mean, I can respect where she's coming from, but still there's a better way of handling it. I can promise you.
Okay. I didn't really have a problem with it because at the end of the day, like he has an option to walk away and she doesn't, not really.
But he also doesn't have an option to stay. She took that away from him. She said no either way, that he's gonna be
involvement is different than like, oh, she didn't say not involvement. I'm just saying. I like the way she laid out the options. Like she was kind of bitchy, but it was like here. So I pulled that up. And it says, the choices as I see them, we can get married and keep the baby. We can get married, give the baby up, or we don't get married and I keep the baby, or we don't get married and I don't keep the baby, or I could get an abortion. Does that cover everything? Like that's what I got. This is what we can do. I think it's less about scoring points off him, although some of it is. I think.
Oh, Mila, we've lost your audio, Melissa. Hang on. It sounds like you're back now. There you go. You're better.
Hello. Okay, thank you. I think it's less about like scoring points off him and more about being like, well, matter of fact, like, fuck, okay, this is what I have. Like, these are my options. And yeah, she's not really letting him have a say in it, but in her situation, I don't know if I would either if it wasn't a guy that I wanted much to do with anymore. I'm not saying that, and it being 30 or really even 40 years ago, right? Like the option of like co-parenting was less reasonable. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
no, I
that wasn't necessarily something that, was just something you thought about as like a normal choice. So I think that's the piece that was missing in her options.
Sure. And that's where, I mean, obviously that's what successfully has worked for me in my situation. So I'm relating to it that way, but I do try to keep the own mind of, where she's coming from and where he is too. But it just seemed like she wasn't going to involve him no matter what. I took it that she, and this is still early on. It's maybe I'm jumping to a future chapter where they're talking.
I think you are
but
jumping one
it's
further.
when you're going through it multiple times, I went
Yeah.
through almost the whole book twice today.
Mhm.
It blurs together a little bit, but
I think we can get all
personally-
the Jeff stuff out now. That's fine.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
personally didn't appreciate how she shat on him. And when we meet another character later that she deals with, it very much felt like she was portraying her mother on him, how she's been treated, which is where I'm coming from. It's a little extra shitty. Not that she doesn't have
Yeah.
she doesn't have right to feel feelings. I'm not saying that. She can. But this is also a guy who's, like, everything he said, he was trying to do the right thing. It was pretty bad when he hit her. That wasn't a good move. That was sucked. That was shitty. I mean, for
Yeah.
sure. But until that point, she had already, like, not let him had a chance to speak.
I
on
know. I
anything.
wonder, like, if they were given the chance to it not just be like, hey, I've been pregnant for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Because pregnant is long. That there would be some healing. But this is that initial, like,
Because it was, what,
what the
11
fuck
days?
stage.
11 days, I think.
I think she something like 3 weeks or something like
Could've
that.
been,
I don't
yeah.
know. Not like this is still the like. So there's still time for it to heal, even before she were to have the baby,
sure,
for
definitely.
just to be
Oh,
a
absolutely.
big part of the kid's life if he wants to be. And I think she'd come around to that. There's potential for that, I should say.
Sure, that's fair.
So
All right, I think that's enough on Frannie for now. All right, so we're moving on to chapter 3. Norm Brewitt woke up at 10:15 in the morning. Sound of kids fighting outside the bedroom window and country music from the radio in the kitchen. Norm, Hap, and Ralph are all coming down with colds. Hap wonders if it might be something more. Joe Bob is his cousin, who's a sheriff's deputy. We're back in Arnett, Texas. This is the next day after the Campion car crash and everything. And Joe Bob has some information basically saying, hey, there's some feds in town looking into that guy that was rescued last night. He ended up dying at the hospital, I believe. That's where we get that information. And then it's a little bit bigger of a deal than just cholera, or they're unsure of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like they were talking about the medical examiner who came in. I guess it's almost like the coroner who came and reviewed the body, and how they were like how Joe Bob was like, yeah, he's a big turd. He's a big turd in a little bowl. Basically, like, because he came in and was like trying to direct the scene and feel like all big up and mighty. And yeah, I mean, the whole point of this chapter is whatever this is already spreading to some extent. We see people starting to have colds. So, these goddamn summer colds.
the baby has the croup that
Right.
Lila is babysitting. Can I
Yeah.
point out Norm Brewitt is an asshole?
He's a piece of trash.
The line of like, it was hard times when a man had to sit at home and wipe his kids' noses so his wife could go and scratch out a lousy buck.
Or when
Okay.
he refers to his wife as that slutty bitch. Like, that wasn't a
I
good line
just-
either.
I can't.
I'm not gonna lie, like this.
I just like him way more than you all dislike Frannie. Let me just like,
That's
at least
fair.
he had like,
Absolutely.
oh,
I mean,
that guy's just an asshat.
Oh, yeah.
So
I seriously
It
don't
wasn't a
dislike
dislike.
Frannie. Yeah,
Yeah.
Benji, take it. I just didn't like the situation of how she handled
Exactly.
it.
Okay.
Personally.
but
So,
I didn't mean to, but like
yeah.
Norm is
no.
actually a jerk.
yes, there's a few of those
way,
we
way
meet.
up. Totally agree on that.
Yeah,
He is.
there's a
piece
few
of
of
trash.
those we meet. This chapter, not gonna lie, is where I start. Like, 'cause I'll listen to the first 3 chapters, and then usually by this point, I'm getting to work, or I'm like just about to start my day, and so I'm listening piece by piece. So I may hear 5 minutes here, 6 minutes here, and this chapter I just breeze right over. Like, I catch the bits and pieces, especially like Joe Bob, like when he comes in and gets his explanation. But I don't even listen to Norm, like, because I know he, like, again, it's a character that I know doesn't continue on, so he gets no like credence from me. Like, I don't pay attention to anything from him, which isn't fair. But I as you said, he's not a good character anyway, so it's like, meh.
Yeah.
Don't need to waste time on him, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, point being, people are getting sick.
Yep.
Eddie died, or not, sorry, Charles Campion died on the way to the hospital. And yeah, that's kind of it. Norm's a piece of trash.
Yep.
Chapter 4.
Or
It was
Yep.
an hour past nightfall. Starkey sat alone at a long table, sifting through sheets of yellow flimsy. So this is inside the Project Blue compound. Death is everywhere. Starkey and Creighton try to contain the spread and explain what went wrong. Is this also the chapter that we have the guy's head down in the soup bowl? Like
I believe so.
Because Starkey can't get over it.
Some more brass might come down from Washington and want to look at the dead Nobel Prize winner who is lying 400 feet away under the hot desert, less than a mile away. Oh, hold on, that was not the right part. I will look.
There's a lot of death.
Cafeteria.
Because there were 3
Still
Starkey
the man
chapters.
with his face down in the soup. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, this one I like the Starkey chapters because I like the how it happened kind of stuff.
Me
Inside
too.
And like
scoop.
yeah, the inside scoop. I like that we're getting this now. It's not like a Walking Dead situation where it's like, oh, what caused the outbreak? Why are there all these zombies and all this shit? No, it's literally this is why.
Mhm.
We're going to deal with what happens after, but this is why this happens. This is not a mystery. And I kind of like that fact. I would like to have that more of a story of a mystery, but I'd like, since this isn't the story he's telling, that it's just upfront, out of the way, and it's an interesting take on, a virus created in a lab for unknown purposes gets out to the public.
Yeah, So I have 2 quick thoughts on this. It very much reminds me of the Institute in the fact that we get the Institute's point of view from things the whole book. I liked that, and this has a feel to that where we're at, I want to say, the culprit point. The thing behind the thing. So I just wanted to point out that it reminds me of that. All these Starkey chapters that we get, it's just the scene of where it started and what's kind of going on. And the other thing is, you just said, this disease or whatever that gets out for, unforeseen reasons. It very much feels like a laboratory that's built around the Pandora's box kind of paradox of, we have these deadly things to study them and just to be able to contain them, to work on them, to figure out antidotes if they would ever get out in there. But guess what? When one gets out and you're not ready for it, right? It's that paradox of do you keep it just to be able to study it and have a breach, or do you just squash it and hopefully it never comes out again? Right? It's you got to pick and choose sometimes.
And I'm not sure if this is the chapter or if it's a later one, but there is another reference to a book we all have read from Stephen King where they said, oh, well, I guess we got to get the shop involved now. There is a line
where the
fire starter. Yeah, the shop they talk about, and I can't, they might be talking about a different shop, like trying to, say the FBI or whatever. But I read it as we gotta get the shop involved, and this is right after or right before Firestarter was written and everything. So it would make sense to get your secret government agency to, try to get containment on this.
Yeah.
So.
I would like to point out that in here it specifically states that the disease has a 99.4% communicability.
Nailed it. Nice.
Talking is hard.
Enunciatorian.
I couldn't remember. I knew it was something with a 0.6. If it was 0.6 survival rating, or
0.6
if it was
remaining.
Yeah.
It's a 0.6 difference.
Yeah. So fair enough. All right. So.
I will say, one more quick note on that. We find out that Starkey's son-in-law was the one who was kind of in charge of the program, not necessarily in the one who made this mistake. We kind of get an idea of how they've had these safeguards, and there's only so much you can do until you have, the watch guards watching the watch guards, and it's too much. So, there's a certain level of safety protocol that you can have that's reasonable, and they felt like they had that. But there still are holes, just by nature. There just has to be at some point. But his son-in-law ends up killing himself, shooting himself in the brain, or through the eye, it says. And he's obviously, I like that they're not just robots in this lab. I mean, he's a real person. He's like, how am I going to tell my daughter, he didn't make the mistake, but he was in charge of it, so he feels guilty. And, go ahead, live the rest of your life with that. So I like that we get the humanity of the white coats in this one, if that makes sense. It's not just a person getting a job done and they're a name with nothing behind it. They're actual humans.
Exactly. So, all right. I think we can move on to New York City. Actually, yes, it does start off in New York.
It
It
does.
does. We get a flashback. Larry Underwood pulled around the corner and found a parking space big enough. Larry returns to New York. His success feels like a failure. City is falling apart around him, but not because of the flu. Long recap. We get a long recap of his overnight success after years of struggle. Wayne Stuckey tells him how it is. He's a chump surrounded by parasites. Second part of the chapter is long exploration of his relationship with his mother, who loves him but doesn't think much of him. The first longer chapter, 6 to 7,000 words in this chapter, is what literally the notes say on that. And I'm trying to remember, do we get the speech? And I know I'm jumping way to the end. We get the speech from the mother of what Larry is in this one, or I thought that was the next one when he came to his work.
That's much further on.
Yeah, that's what I
This is we
thought.
get the speech of the guy on the beach.
Yeah, well,
that's
yes,
the Wayne Stuckey, but we do the part with his mom, which is kind of the second half of this chapter.
Yeah.
It's more of just getting in, and she knocks on the window and finds him in the car and invites him in.
Yeah.
But we don't get the whole "she doesn't think much of him" speech yet.
Yeah.
We just get some kind of.
So we'll
it's a
we'll
weird
save
relationship.
That. Yeah. So yeah, the first part of it, Larry, after a few years of trying to be a musician and everything, writes a song for Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond doesn't use the song. Larry decides or talked into doing a single for himself. It's a song called Baby, Can You Dig Your Man? As I mentioned earlier, a very 50s, in my opinion, style sounding tune, a bebop, R&B, Motown-ish song from a white gentleman. And it becomes a hit. So he's given $4,000 in 1978. So that's like, what, $12,000?
They said 9.
It was more than that. It was like 7,500, and then there were a couple signing bonus that he got like $2,000 right away as well.
Oh, so I thought he had only got the check for $4,000. The only money he had gotten so far was $4,000. Then he was getting a signing bonus and royalties and stuff. But either way,
magnitude doesn't really matter. He ends up spending a lot more than he's gotten, and it's without him realizing it, because he's a dumb.
He's 24 years. Yeah, he's 24 years old, never really done anything. And hey, I have this money to burn. And, throws a big old house party on the beach, rents a beach house for a month.
That feels kind of 80s.
Yeah, all the cocaine and weed and heroin you want. Yeah, so that's a fair assessment. That could be an 80s reference on that one.
That feels very 80s. Larry is not the world's best decider of the things.
No, I agree with that. He's not the brightest, but he's a good guy, right? Like he's not insane. He's not very dumb. He's I couldn't put my finger on what I really thought of him, is what I'll say.
He's selfish. He's selfish. He's self-centered. I shouldn't say selfish. He's self-centered.
I think that's
in the fact
that's well said.
Maybe immature.
Yes.
But
like a
the thing is, like,
is.
I think I'm supposed to like him because they put a lot of, like, this is how I feel reading this book. And it's been a long time since I finished this book, and I started The Stand probably about a year ago again, and I only got this far, so I didn't get very far, and I got to about this chapter, and I was like, I don't like him. And then I was reading it again this time, and I've read it 3 times now, getting ready for this, and I was like, I think I'm really supposed to like Larry, and I know where the story goes, and I mean, I get that, but like currently, I have to really work hard to remind myself that I think I'm supposed to like him. I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying it's taking effort.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Because
go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Well, to me, it's like, and not getting too deep into it, it's the start of the redemption arc kind of thing. Like, yeah, you're supposed to like him, but you're also supposed to see he's not a nice guy, which I know we'll get to a later point, but he's not a good guy, but he's, it's, you can see the glimmers of good. So it's the start of the sunken low to escalating. And I would hope for that for a character like this. And yeah, this is hard with, not only,
Also,
but in these chapters, it's hard to like him.
we're also a lot older
Yeah.
than a lot of these characters. We're older than Stu, who's the old guy who's like got the dead wife, right?
I think Stu's my age. Like Stu's 36-ish.
I don't even think
37.
I don't even know if he's in his 30s yet. I'm pretty
Oh.
sure he was still young. And Franny's only 22. And they're just, I think, young. I say as an old person. I understand.
No, I think that's fair. I really.
But I
go ahead. Sorry.
think, I was going to say, like, I think it's, of course, it feels to me like they're doing stupid things because they're young, right? Like, and it's okay to do stupid things and have these kind of major life malfunctions, if you will, because you're young. I that's all. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, in that mentality, give some credit back to Frannie on being super young, right? I mean, and she is in a super emotional state, so like I get that for sure. It's hard to be a responsible adult in a moment like that.
Mhm.
I get it. So fair, whatever. But Larry, I mean, I think being young and dumb is kind of the reason he is where he is, right? And not the mistakes that he made. It's also the doing the irresponsible thing and staying in the business has been in for as long as he has, right? And it just, you almost have to luck into it at some point. Like you almost have to make a bad career decision to stick with it, take the risk to have it pay off at some point. And luckily it has for him. But I really do feel like, and we'll get into this more later when we learn more about his relationship with his mom. He's a bit of a wet blanket, is what I'll call him. He doesn't really see the writing on the wall very well, and he just kind of expects things to either work out or don't. Not necessarily that his actions are affecting other people in a negative way for him.
Yeah.
Or for them.
And and just a side notes, Giovanna Depo played Larry in 2020, and I had it here, Adam Stork played him in 1994. But yeah, now we can kind of move on to the scenes with his mother. So basically he gets a wake-up call from his buddy Wayne there, who at first Larry's like, oh, you're just after me because of my money, you're jealous. And he realizes, oh, Wayne comes from a shit ton more money than I have.
Mhm.
And again, his father's the head of a video game like processing thing or whatever. And it's like in 1970. I mean, I guess could have been arcade cabinets, but it made more
Late
sense in the
80s for
90s.
sure, though. Yeah.
Late 80s for sure. Yeah. So it's like one of those, is that an edit that came in, something like a change? I would love to like compare the chapters, like get an original and compare where the differences are.
Yeah, I was thinking that
but
too.
So he gets the wake up call, and then he wakes up about 4 or 5 days later in New York in his car in front of his mom's apartment, to her tapping on the window because he just ended up pulling up and passing out in front of her house, kind of thing, after the long drive. And we get a decent conversation from the two of, she's not disappointed. She, it's kind of one of those of, you could tell she's got that motherly instinct, the almost automatic guilt that she tries to instill, but not accusatorily
She's
of
letting him
kind of
tie the noose for himself, if that's
exactly.
Like, she's not going to guess that something's wrong. She knows something's wrong, but she's going to let him come out and realize that she knows.
Yeah.
Because she knows her son.
Right.
If she says anything, then it's not going to be, Right.
So,
anything else about Larry?
not in this chapter.
Not in this chapter. We'll have plenty more coming up soon.
All right.
So-
1/5 of the way done with our 6th of the book.
All right. Chapter 6. It was late afternoon when Frannie went back out to where her father was patiently weeding the peas and beans. Frannie is much closer to her dad than her mom. They have a moment that lasts many pages. She tells him she's pregnant. He is a perfect parent in response. I love that. So this is John Birmingham. Again, this is the one who wrote this. So these are going to be funny too. So props to him. He is a perfect parent in response. They both know her mother won't be. They have a real talk about her relationship, how her mother has changed, her dead brother, family saga time. That's
Yeah.
pretty well said. That really buttons it up
Yeah.
pretty well.
I
Does.
like
And
Dad.
I mean, I like Dad too. He's a great character. Kind of reminds me of, oh crap, I can't think of his name, but the neighbor from Pet Cemetery, had he had a daughter, very much like up in the mountains there, kind of that old Maine-ish style, just good old boy,
Mhm.
older daughter
Crandall.
in like
Old Mr. Crandall. Yeah.
Miranda, yes. And, like that's kind of who I pictured in this role, was that guy just being just a good dad, kind of thing. I don't think there's much we can talk more than on the summary there, unless somebody has something. But we can there's a few chapters where it's like, it's just a good scene. Daughter, dad, he has a good response of telling her why he feels the way he does. And that's about it.
I would say in general, there's a lot of those where you're, oh, look, we're getting some character development, or, oh, look, here's some exposition. This was an exposition, sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.